Hello, this is TryHard Reading Corner number 3. If you are still clicking on this, I am surprisingly shocked but pleasantly surprised. I hope you're all doing very well. I am trying to be as productive as possible. It can be hard. Yesterday, my focus was definitely cleaning because I am quite surprised at the mess I can make when I stay in my house for 72 some hours or even more. So, yesterday was devoted to cleaning. It was so much fun. But I was jamming out to my music and it was half of a dance party, half folding laundry, half vacuuming. So, I hope you all are doing your part to help out at your homes doing chores. I know when Mom asks you to make the bed, you're like, I'm just going to go back in it in 10 minutes, Mom. But the nice thing to do is to do it, right? Especially since you have to be courteous for everyone's space involved, because you should not be going anywhere too much and you should be hanging out and spending time all together as one happy family. So, to inspire you to do your chores, I thought I would tell you an embarrassing Miss Johnson childhood story to start off. It's so bad, guys. So, I was probably 5th grade, maybe 6th grade, so like right around your guys' age. And I was watching like my go-to favorite TV show. Don't even know what it is now. And back then, you can't just pause things, or you can't just like click, click, click on Netflix and it saves for you. So like, when it's commercial time, you are running like ham to go get your chips, to go to the bathroom, run back. You don't want to miss a second of it. It was intense back then being a child trying to watch TV, okay? So, angsty little Miss Johnson was trying to watch her favorite show, and Mom had asked me to, okay, I'm noticing a lot of my stories involve my mother. It's because I love her. Either way, Mama asked me earlier to start the dishwasher. That's not very. And of course, little Miss Johnson, I've grown, I've learned. Little Miss Johnson, in one ear, out the other. And I had slithered on down to the basement watching my show. And so my mom said, Miss Johnson. She didn't, but I'm not telling you my first name. Miss Johnson, you forgot to start the dishwasher. You need to start the dishwasher. Oh, fine, Mom. And so I scurry up the stairs, and I get there, and I'm looking for, like, we had, like, these little, like, capsule things, you know? So I was looking for the capsules. I couldn't find under the sink, yeah. Now, pause in this story so you don't just think, Miss Johnson, really, because I have to clarify, and so you understand my mental process, because it's weird, I know. So, when you wash your hands, okay, there are many options to wash your hands, okay? Very many soap options. You got the bar, classic. You got the foam if you're feeling fancy. And you got that, like, it's like glue, that gluey, marbly looking liquid one too. You have many options for soap, okay? All of them do the job. All of them clean. So keep that in mind because this is going to be bad. So, I could not find the stinking little pellet things. And so I'm looking around, I'm digging, I'm like, I'm going to be late for my show. So I'm starting to panic, and I'm digging, and my eye catches a Dawn's liquid soap bottle. It did say dish soap, okay? So, I'm like, dishwasher, dish soap. It's the same thing. So me panicky because I know my show's starting and I'm missing, I grab the bottle and I squirt it in the dishwasher. It gets worse. I squirt it in the dishwasher, I slap that sucker, I turn it on, and I race downstairs to my show because I love it. So my mom is doing something in another room, and my cute little baby brother, who's like little, like 3 or 4, innocent, he walks in and he has a cookie and he's like, Mama, there's a lot of bubbles. And she's like, what? Did you watch a show? Did you read a book about bubbles? What are you talking about? No, there's a lot of bubbles in the kitchen. Mom's like, what? He's like, there's a lot of bubbles in the kitchen, Mom. And so she was just like, I don't know what he's talking about, but he was very adamant to show her. Good job, MVP of the story. Mom walks in, and I know I exaggerate sometimes, and I'm a little eccentric. I kid you not. The bubbles were like at our waist. And they were very big bubbles. Like if I hosted a bubble party, it would be amazing. It was so high. They were like to the counters, and it was just this wall of bubbles coming at you from the dishwasher. So, silly little Miss Johnson is downstairs, clicking, watching my show, thinking, found a loophole. And I hear this shriek of all shrieks, Miss Johnson! And I thought the world was ending, which for me it was a little bit. And so I scutter upstairs, and I was like, we need all the towels! We need all the towels! And so I'm like, what? And so I'm grabbing towels, and I'm just walking around, and everybody's running. And then I look at the mess I created. I spent the next couple hours popping bubbles in my kitchen. It was bad. And we had a long conversation that dish soap, liquid dish soap, is not the same as, I'm sorry, this is so bad. Liquid dish soap is not the same as those little dishwasher packets. So, if you feel inclined, the goodness of your heart, to wash the dishes, to use the dishwasher, do not be a little Miss Johnson. It was bad. But it's one of those stories of that doesn't sound real. And I'm like, I know, it's my life. So, if I inspire you to pick up your shoes or make your bed, I've accomplished my goal for today. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm literally tearing up because I remember how bad it was. It was so bad, you guys. So, welcome to TryHard Reading Corner. As you can tell, we have a new guest, Mr. Pineapple. I made him a while back, and I found him, and I was like, what a pop of color. So I slapped him on the wall. He is held up by painter's tape, so fingers crossed. But I have to tell you, today I am so, so excited because I found my all-time favorite book. Thank you to my friend who is letting me loan it, or let me borrow it for the foreseeable future. I found the Wayside book. It's my favorite book. I don't even care that I'm 24 years old. This is amazing, okay? So what I thought we could do is I'll spend a couple of minutes, or not a couple minutes, I'll spend an episode reading a couple chapters, and I'll spend an episode doing a children's book, kind of pausing and playing, because as my students know, these stories are little mini stories for each chapter, and they're all crazy entertaining. So, I know we've all read a couple this year, but I do feel like it's good to reminisce the good times and the crazy times in Miss Johnson's room. So, I'm going to read let's do 2 chapters. First 2 chapters today, and we're going to start at the very beginning. We're going to start this journey together with the OG of Wayside School, Sideways Stories from Wayside School. I love this book so much. Okay. I will read the introduction because I do think this is pinnacle for the reading, okay? This book contains 30 stories about the children and teachers at Wayside School. But before you get to know them, there is something you ought to know so that you don't get confused. Wayside School was accidentally built sideways. It was supposed to be 1 story high with 30 classrooms all in a row. Instead, it was 30 stories high with 1 classroom on each story. The builder said he was very sorry. Pause. I always think of cathedral because all of our classes are on 1 level. So if you think about it, we are what Wayside School should have looked like. Instead, they are like this Jenga tower. Very important part for the story. The children at Wayside School like having a sideways school. They have an extra large playroom. The children and teachers described in this book all go to class on the top floor. So there are 30 stories from the 30th story of Wayside School. It has been said that these stories are strange and silly. That is probably true. However, when I told stories about you to the children at Wayside, they thought you were strange and silly. That is also probably true. You don't even know. Okay, chapter 1. Let's get started. Mrs. Gorf. We got a little picture in case you need a visual. She is terrifying. Mrs. Gorf. Mrs. Gorf had a long tongue and pointed ears. She was the meanest teacher in Wayside School. She taught the class on the 30th story. If you children are bad, she warned, or if you answer a problem wrong, I'll wiggle my ears, stick out my tongue, and turn you into apples. Mrs. Gorf did not like children, but she loved apples. Joe could not add. Joe couldn't even count, but he knew that if he answered a problem wrong, he would be turned into an apple. So he copied from John. That's not good to cheat. Don't do that. Oh, he didn't like to cheat, but Mrs. Gorf had never taught him how to add. That's not a good teacher. Ooh. One day, Mrs. Gorf caught Joe copying John's paper. She wiggled her ears, first the right one, then the left one, stuck out her tongue, and turned Joe into an apple. Then she turned John into an apple for letting Joe cheat. Hey, that isn't fair, said Todd. John was only trying to help a friend. Mrs. Gorf wiggled her ears, first the right one, then the left, stuck out her tongue, and turned Todd into an apple. Does anybody else have an opinion? She asked. Nobody said a word. Mrs. Gorf laughed and placed the 3 apples on her desk. Stephen started to cry. He couldn't help it. He was scared. I do not allow crying in the classroom, said Mrs. Gorf. She wiggled her ears, first the right one and the left, stuck out her tongue, and turned Stephen into an apple. For the rest of the day, the children were absolutely quiet. And when they went home, they were too scared to even tell their parents. But Joe, John, Todd, and Stephen could not go home. Mrs. Gorf just left them on her desk. They were able to talk to each other, but they didn't have much to say. The parents were very worried. They didn't know where their children were. Nobody seemed to know. The next day, Kathy was late for school. As soon as she walked in, Mrs. Gorf turned her into an apple. Paul sneezed during class. He was turned into an apple. Nancy said, God bless you, when Paul sneezed. Mrs. Gorf wiggled her ears, first the right one, then the left, stuck out her tongue, and turned Nancy into an apple. Terrence fell out of his chair. He was also turned into an apple. Maricela tried to run away. She was halfway to the door as Mrs. Gorf's right ear began to wiggle. Then she reached for the door. Mrs. Gorf's left ear wiggled. Maricela opened the door and had one foot outside when Mrs. Gorf stuck out her tongue. Maricela became an apple. Mrs. Gorf picked up the apple from the floor and put it on her desk with the others. Then a funny thing happened. Mrs. Gorf turned around and fell over a piece of chalk. The 3 Erics laughed. They were turned into apples. Mrs. Gorf had a dozen apples on her desk. Joe, John, Todd, Stephen, Kathy, Paul, Nancy, Terrence, Maricela, and the 3 Erics, Eric Fry, Eric Bacon, and Eric Ovens. Louis, the art teacher, walked into the classroom. He had missed the children at recess. He had heard that Mrs. Gorf was a mean teacher. So he came up to investigate. He saw 12 apples on Mrs. Gorf's desk. I must be wrong, he thought. She must be a very good teacher if so many children are bringing her apples. He walked back down the playground. The next day, a dozen more children were turned into apples. Louis, the art teacher, came back into the room. He saw 24 apples on Mrs. Gorf's desk. There were only 3 children left in the room. She must be the best teacher in the world, he thought. By the end of the week, all the children were apples. Mrs. Gorf was very happy. Now I can go home, she said. I don't have to teach anymore. I won't have to walk up 30 flights of stairs ever again. You're not going anywhere, shouted Todd. Todd's an apple. Okay, so he jumped off the desk and bopped Mrs. Gorf on the nose. The rest of the apples followed. Mrs. Gorf fell on the floor. The apples jumped all over her. Stop, she screamed, or I'll turn you into applesauce. But the apples didn't stop, and Mrs. Gorf could do nothing about it. Turn us back into children, Todd demanded. Mrs. Gorf had no choice. She stuck out her tongue, wiggled her ears, first the left one, then the right one, and turned the apples back into children. All right, said Maricela. Let's go get Louis. He'll know what to do. No, screamed Mrs. Gorf. I'll turn you back into apples. She wiggled her ears, first the right one and the left. Then she stuck out her tongue. But Jenny held up a mirror, and Mrs. Gorf turned herself into an apple. The children didn't know what to do. They didn't have a teacher. Even though Mrs. Gorf was mean, they didn't think it was right to leave her as an apple. But none of them knew how to wiggle their ears. Same, I wish I knew. Louis, the art teacher, walked in. Where's Mrs. Gorf? Nobody said a word. Boy, am I hungry, said Louis. I don't think Mrs. Gorf would mind if I ate this apple. After all, she's always has so many. He picked up the apple, which was really Miss Gorf, shined it on his shirt, and ate it. Dun-dun-dun! Drama! Okay, don't think, I went too long with the dishwasher story, so I apologize. But we will get things started with our new teacher, Mrs. Jules, in Chapter 2, okay? Chapter 2, Mrs. Jules. Also use a little picture. Love me some illustration. Get a visual in your head. Mrs. Jules had a terribly nice face. She stood at the bottom of Wayside School and looked up. She was supposed to teach the class on the 30th story. The children on the 30th story were scared. They had never told anybody what happened to Mrs. Gorf. They hadn't had a teacher in 3 days. They were afraid of what their new teacher would be like. They had heard she'd be a terribly nice teacher. They had never had a nice teacher. They were terribly afraid of nice teachers. Mrs. Jules walked up the winding, creaking staircase to the 30th story. She was so afraid. She was afraid of the children. She had heard that they were horribly cute children. She had never taught cute children. She was horribly afraid of cute children. She opened the door to the classroom. She was terribly nice. The children could tell just by looking at her. Mrs. Jules looked at the children. They were horribly cute. In fact, they were much too cute to be children. I don't believe it, said Mrs. Jules. It's a room full of monkeys. The children looked at each other. They didn't see any monkeys. This is ridiculous, said Mrs. Jules. Just ridiculous. I walked all the way up 30 flights of stairs for nothing but a class of monkeys. What do they think I am? I am a teacher, not a zookeeper. The children looked at her. They didn't know what to say. Todd scratched his head. Oh, I'm sorry, said Mrs. Jules. Please don't get me wrong. I have nothing against monkeys. It's just I was expecting kids. I like monkeys. I really do. Why, I'm sure we can play all kind of monkey games. What are you talking about? Said Todd. Mrs. Jules nearly fell out of her chair. Well, what do you know? A talking monkey. Tomorrow I will bring you a banana. My name is Todd, said Todd. The children were flabbergasted. They all raised their hands. I'm sorry, said Mrs. Jules, but I don't have enough bananas for all of you. I didn't expect this. Next time I will bring a whole bushel. I don't want a banana, said Calvin. I'm not a monkey. Would you like a peanut? Said Mrs. Jules. I think I might have a bag of peanuts in my purse. Wait, let me check. Yes, here it is. Thanks, said Calvin. He did like peanuts. Allison stood up. I am not a monkey, she said. I am a girl. My name is Allison, and so is everybody else. Mrs. Jules was shocked. Do you mean to tell me that every monkey in here is named Allison? No, said Jenny. She means we're all children. My name is Jenny. No, said Mrs. Jules. No, you are much too cute to be children. Jason raised his hand. Yes, said Mrs. Jules, the chimpanzee in the red shirt. My name is Jason, said Jason, and I am not a chimpanzee. But you're too small to be a gorilla, said Mrs. Jules. I'm a boy, said Jason. You're not a monkey? Asked Mrs. Jules. No, said Jason. And the rest of the class? They're not monkeys either, said Mrs. Jules. No, said Allison. That's what we've been trying to tell you. Are you sure, said Mrs. Jules. We'd know if we were monkeys, wouldn't we? Asked Calvin. I don't know, said Mrs. Jules. Do monkeys know that they are monkeys? I don't know, said Allison. But I'm not a monkey. No, I suppose you're not, said Mrs. Jules. Okay. In that case, we have a lot of work to do. Reading, writing, subtraction, addition, spelling. Everybody take out a piece of paper. We will have a test tomorrow. Jason tapped Todd on the shoulder. He said, Do you want to know something? I liked it better when she thought we were monkeys. I know, said Todd. I guess now it means she won't bring me a banana. There will be no talking in class, said Mrs. Jules. She wrote Todd's name on the blackboard under the word disciplined. Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you to my friend that gave me these books. It makes me happy. It makes me remember when I get to read to my kids, when they finish up homework early, or when we were doing the Can Read Challenge, all those good